Okay, so we're going to go through this scene carefully. I'm going to try and explain all of the lines to you, and then at the points where we have the pink check marks, I'm going to ask you to pause the screencast and decide whether you think Macbeth is disturbed or attempting to act confidently. So the scene begins in the banqueting hall. The banquet is prepared. Two thrones are placed on stage. Macbeth enters as the king. Lady Macbeth is the queen. Ross, Lennox, lords and attendants, and Lady Macbeth sits. Now, this is an important scene because it's key in Macbeth's realization that his murders create inescapable psychological damage and that he can never dissociate himself from violence. So there's this enormous sense of psychological disturbance in this scene, and that's what we're going to track at each of the points where we stop. So Macbeth says, "You know your own degrees. And degrees are ranks. Sit down. At first and last, the hearty welcome." So here he invokes hierarchy, because here, as you can see in the note, social ranks would determine the seating order. So there's this extremely hierarchical beginning to the scene, and the lords sit. They say, "Thanks to your majesty." Macbeth says, "Our self will mingle with society and play the humble host. We will mingle with society and host. Our hostess keeps her state." He's talking here about Lady Macbeth here, sitting on the throne. "But in best time we will require her welcome. So soon we will need her to welcome everyone here." And she says here, "Pronounce it for me, sir, to all our friends, for my heart speaks they are welcome." This is them putting on, the masks that hide their hearts that they talk about in Act 3, Scene 2. She's trying to display this sense of gracious kindness to all the guests. And then the first murderer enters, which is a disturbing, a courtly ceremony of this nature. We've got this highly scripted social occasion, and then a murderer arriving. And then Macbeth says, "See, they encounter thee with their heart's thanks." All of the guests feel deep thanks in their heart towards Lady Macbeth. Both sides are even. He's talking about the table here. There are equal numbers of people on both sides. "Here I'll sit in the midst." He chooses a seat for himself in the middle of everyone. "Be large in mirth." So everyone be unrestrained in happiness. Enjoy yourselves. "Anon we'll drink a measure the table round." Soon we'll drink a toast with everyone all around the table. And then he speaks in an aside to the first murderer. "There's blood upon thy face." And so we never really know at this line here whether Macbeth is actually telling the truth. Can we see blood on the murderer's face? Or whether he's just being sensitive and paranoid. So we get a sense here of the possibility of him maybe wondering or worrying whether the murderer has blood on his face, or it's the beginning of his hallucination that he engages in throughout the rest of the scene. So this place here, I want you to decide. At this point, is Macbeth psychologically disturbed, or is he attempting to display bravado? Importantly, in the previous lines, he's demonstrating that conflict between appearances and reality, because there's this really clear, stark contrast between the way his private thoughts seem to be, which you see in this comment to the murderer, and then the way he behaves in public towards the rest of the guests. So pause this screencast here, and then carry out your first writing task. Okay, so the first murderer then says, "'Tis Banquo's then." It says this blood on his face is Banquo's because he's come to tell Macbeth that he's killed him. And then Macbeth says, "'Tis better thee without than he within." And he means here the blood is better outside you than inside his body, i.e. on his face, than it is inside Banquo's body. Is he dispatched? Is he killed? The first murderer then says, "My lord, his throat is cut. That I did for him." So he promises him that he's cut his throat. And Macbeth's pleased. He says, "Thou art the best of the cutthroats. Yet he's good that did the like for Fleance." So he talks here about, he's trying to find out, he's good that also did the same to Fleance. "If thou didst it, thou art the non-parai." If you did that, you are the best. The non-parais, French without comparison. So here, if you manage to kill Fleance, you are the greatest cutthroat in the land. The first murderer said, most royal Sir Fleance is escaped. So Fleance has escaped and got away. And then Macbeth's thoughts change. Then comes my fit again. So here he means a spasm of fear when he says my fit again. So you can see his sense of psychological disturbance. I had else been perfect, otherwise I would have been fine. Whole as the marble, founded as the rock. So it means solid as marble and firm as a rock. As broad and general as the casing air. As free and unconfined as the air that surrounds us. But now I am cabined, cribbed, and confined. So he's shut up in tiny little spaces, and he finds three different ways of saying that with alliteration. Bound to saucy doubts and fears. And when he says saucy here, it means intrusive or distracting. He's bound by distracting doubts and fears. So here I want you to pause and carry out the writing task on the second quotation. But then he asks, but Banquo's safe, and he means Banquo's definitely dead. I, my lord, safe in a ditch he bides, safe in a ditch he stays, with 20 trenched gashes on his head, the least a death to nature, with 20 hacked wounds on his head, the smallest one of which would kill a man. So then Macbeth says, thanks for that. There the grown serpent lies, and he's talking here about Banquo, the adult snake. The worm that's fled, he meets Fleance, the little kid. The worm that's fled hath nature that in time will venom breed, has a nature that will become poisonous later on in life in the natural course of things. But at the time he has no teeth for the present, so at the moment he's harmless. He then says, get thee gone, tomorrow we'll hear ourselves again. So go away, we'll speak again tomorrow. And Lady Macbeth then enters. My royal lord, you do not give the cheer. You do not entertain the crowds, entertain the guests. The feast is sold that is not often vouched while 'tis a making, 'tis given with welcome. Here she says this, a banquet is no better than a meal that has to be paid for, unless during the feasting, and that's what he means while 'tis a making, the guests are often told how welcome they are. You have to make a sense of the occasion by telling everyone that they're welcome. He's saying he's failing in his duties here. To feed were best at home. From thence the sauce to meat is ceremony. She said, it's better to eat at home. But from here, the sauce to meat is ceremony. So the thing that makes meat more enjoyable to eat is actually the ceremony of a formal occasion. And meeting were bare without it. So gathering of people in a social occasion is a bit boring and thin on the ground and a bit dull without ceremony. So she calls upon him here to provide social unity and harmony and cohesion, which is important in the conflict between order and chaos. So we have this sense that he's failing in his duties as the king here. And then the ghost arrives. Enter the ghost of Banquo and sits in Macbeth's place. So this is extremely important moment of kind of dramatic irony and foreboding, because it inspires his fear and shows the inescapable nature of his guilt that the ghost has turned up. But the fact that he sits in Macbeth's space, almost as if he's sitting in his throne, foreshadows that moment of the witch's prophecy where Banquo's sons will take Macbeth's place. Macbeth then says, sweet remembrancer, now good digestion, wait on appetite and health on both, and is pleased here. May it please your highness to sit. Here had we now our country's honour roofed. Under his roof we've got the whole nobility of the country here. And he addresses Banquo here. Were the graced person of our Banquo present, who may I rather challenge for unkindness than pity for mischance, who I may challenge for unkindness, I may tell him off for his lack of politeness, than feel sorry for him for anything bad that has happened. So there's this great sense of dramatic irony here for us and the rest of the characters, where we see Macbeth blaming Banquo in public, whilst we know deep down that he has committed some kind of, a murderous atrocity. And then Ross says, his absence, sir, lays blame upon his promise, i.e. it makes his promise sound weak, that he would be there. Please your highness to grace us with your royal company. And then here the hallucination or the vision begins. Macbeth says the table's full, but there's an empty seat. And Lennox says, here is a place reserved, sir. Macbeth says, where? And there's a contrast here between his vision and the others, because he can't see a spare seat because Banquo's ghost is in the empty one. Here, my good lord, what is it that moves your highness? What's wrong with you? Why do you seem so affected? Which of you have done this? He thinks that there's a prank going on. What, my good lord? And now he addresses Banquo's ghost almost angrily. Thou canst not say I did it. Never shake thy gory locks at me. And gory locks is bloody hair, all the hair that has got kind of blood and wounds tangled up within it. And he's attempting to alleviate his own guilt. He's shouting at Banquo, saying that he didn't kill him, even though he did arrange it. So he's got this extraordinary sense of guilt that he's trying to alleviate. So here, I want you to pause and decide whether he's traumatized or whether he's trying to be brave. Then Ross says, gentlemen rise, his highness is not well. And Lady Macbeth joins the lords. She says, sit, worthy friend, my lord is often thus, he's often disturbed, and hath been from his youth, he's been like this since he was a kid. Pray you, keep seat, the fit is momentary. So keep in your seats, this spasm of fear is just for a moment, it will pass. Upon a thought he will again be well, so soon, as fast as you can think of it, he will be again well, quickly. If much you note him, if you make it obvious you're looking at him, you shall offend him and extend his passion. You'll draw out his sense of fear and trauma. Feed and regard him not. Carry on eating and just don't look at him. And she says to Macbeth, are you a man? And here, her old methods begin again, but as we see, they don't work very well. She's attempting to emasculate him again. Are you a man? And Macbeth then says, I, a bold one that dare look on that which might appall the devil. So here is an initial claim of bravery. I'm a bold man, and I dare to look on something that would actually shock the devil because it's so grotesque, and he's referring to Banquo's ghost. So he's here willing to see the reality of his crimes in this claim. So I want you to pause here and reflect on whether he's being falsely brave or psychologically disturbed. Lady Macbeth follows. Oh, proper stuff, what a load of rubbish. This is the very painting of your fear. This is the image of your fear. It's an imagination. This is the air-drawn dagger which you said led you to Duncan in his previous soliloquy. A dagger of the mind. Oh, these flaws and starts, these bursts and startled movements are imposters to true fear. They're false imitations of real fear. And they would suit a woman's story at a winter's fire. So an old wives' tale on a winter evening around the fireside, authorized by her granddam, authorized by her granny, as if a granny is telling the story. So his fears are only suitable, according to her, for an old wives' fireside story. They're not real. And he says, shame itself, why do you make such faces? When all's done, you look but on a stool. When everything's over, you're just staring at a chair. She tries to be blunt. But importantly, her old methods fail here. He doesn't pay attention to what she's saying because he is so transfixed by the ghost. He says, prithee, see there. Behold, look, lo, how say you? And then speaks to the ghost. Why, what care I if thou canst nod and speak too? And so he's transfixed on this horror. And then he says this, if charnel houses and our graves must send those that we bury back. Charnel houses are the vaults with the bones of the dead in them. And graves obviously contain dead bodies. And so the image here is of them rejecting the dead and sending them back to life like zombies. If charnel houses and our graves must send those that we bury back, our monuments shall be the moors of kites, And so here he's talking about tombstones. Our tombstones shall be the bellies of birds that eat dead bodies. So the only things that we'll notice are in the stomachs of the birds, kites that eat carrion, which is kind of rotting flesh. And so here it suggests that all of the places that we normally bury someone are unsuitable. So here I want you to pause again, decide, is he being brave or is he disturbed and traumatized, and if so, why? And Lady Macbeth carries on. What? Quite unmanned in folly. And he says, if I stand here, I saw him. So here he's not responsive to her. And you can see the loss of her influence over him here. And he's just adamant that he's seen Banquo's ghost. And she says, fie for shame, he should be embarrassed of his weakness here. Macbeth then says, blood hath been shed ere now, blood hath been shed before now, in the olden time. And he says, ere human statute purged the gentle weal. He means before law and order had regulated the nation, had purged the gentle weal, had cleaned the wound of society. And he's invoking murders and violence of the past. Aye, and since too murders have been performed too terrible for the ear, since then murders have been performed that are too awful we couldn't even hear about them without being traumatized. The time has been that when the brains were out, this has happened in the past, that when people's brains had been knocked out, the man would die, and there an end, and at that point his life would be over. But now they rise again, with 20 mortal murders on their crowns, with 20 fatal wounds on their heads, and push us from our stools. And so here he's got this image of this ghost pushing him from his chair, personifying it, and giving it power over him. This is more strange than such a murder is. This incident here is stranger than these violent murders in the past. She says, my worthy lord, your noble friends do lack you. They miss his presence. Macbeth then says, do not muse at me, my most worthy friends. Don't imagine or wonder about me. I have a strange infirmity, which is nothing. I have a strange illness, which is nothing to those that know me. Nothing important for you to worry about. Come, love and health to all, then I'll sit down. Give me some wine, fill full. So he's trying here to regain his composure and his normality. But the ghost enters again. And then he says, I drink to the general joy of the whole table, and to our dear friend Banquo, whom we miss. Would he were here, I wish he was here. To all and him we thirst, and all to all. There's an enormous sense of tension and dramatic irony here, because the ghost is involved in Macbeth's vision, but none of the others at the table can see him, and Macbeth is addressing him as if he's included within the toast. And the lords then say, our duties in the pledge, this is the toast that they say. Then Macbeth shouts at the ghost again, away and quit my sight, avaunt and quit my sight, let the earth hide thee, get back in the body of the earth, get back in the ground. Thy bones are marrowless, they have no insides. No, thy blood is cold because he's dead. Thou hast no speculation in those eyes, your eyes can't even see, which thou dost glare with, which you are staring angrily at me with. He's addressing the ghost again. And Lady Macbeth just says, think of this, good peers, but as a thing of custom, as something that regularly happens. 'Tis no other, only it spoils the pleasure of the time. It's something regular, but it is ruining our evening. And then Macbeth again tries to convince himself by shouting at the ghost, what man dare I dare? Any man that dares is something that I dare to do. Approach thou like the rugged Russian bear. I'll approach you like a Russian bear, the armed rhinoceros, or the Hircian tiger. So we've got here all these especially fierce animals. Take any shape but that. You choose whichever form you want, and my firm nerves shall never tremble. My strong body, my strong nerves won't shake. Or be alive again. Come back to life and dare me to the desert with thy sword. Challenge me to a fight in the wilderness. That's what we mean by desert, the wilderness. And if I shake, if trembling I inhabit then, if I inhabit trembling, if I occupy shaking, if I become fearful, protest me the baby of a girl. Tell me that I am the toy of a little girl. Hence, horrible shadow. Away, horrible shadow. Unreal mockery. Hence, be gone. So again, here I want you to pause and reflect on his state of mind. Is he disturbed or is he composed and controlled? And then the ghost leaves. Why so, being gone, I am a man again. Pray you, sit still. So after the ghost leaves, he finds not only himself composed, but he feels a man again. You have displaced the mirth. You've displaced the happiness. You've broke the good meeting with most admired disorder. You've disrupted the occasion with most admired disorder. She means here chaos that everyone has actually noticed. That's what she means by admired, that people have seen it and noticed it. So we have this huge sense of social conflict that is at odds with the normal sense of harmony that Shakespeare would have expected and wanted on an occasion like this. But then the images get darker in the final part of the scene. He says, can such things be, and overcome us like a summer cloud, and pass us over like a summer cloud without our special wonder? He's addressing here the others at the table. How can things like this happen without anyone noticing or feeling strange? You make me strange, even to the disposition that I owe. You make me feel strange, and not my normal self, when now I think you can behold such sights, that you can see such things, and keep the natural ruby of your cheeks, keep the natural redness of your face, a sense of health, when mine is blanched with fear, when mine is turned white with fear. And Ross has no idea what he's talking about. What sight, my lord? And she just tells him to stop speaking. I pray you, speak not. He grows worse and worse. He's getting worse. Question enrages him. So the questions you're asking him are making him angry. At once, good night. He tells him to leave. Stand not upon the order of your going. And here she means don't worry about the rank as you leave, so you don't have to leave in a certain order according to social hierarchy. So again, there's that huge sense of social disruption and social disorder. But go at once. Lennox then says, good night, and better health attend his majesty. Lady Macbeth, a kind good night to all, and everyone leaves. And then Macbeth says this, it will have blood, they say. Blood will have blood. Here, the act of evil itself will demand more blood. Stones have been known to move and trees to speak. So here, he's talking here about nature giving away the secrets of his murder. Augurs and understood relations have, by magpies and chooks and rooks, brought forth the secrets man of blood. So he says here, omens and secret connections have been revealed by different sorts of birds of the secrets man of blood, the most hidden murderer. So if you think of this in a different order, the most hidden murderer, the most secretive murderer, has been revealed by omens of different birds. Then the birds have given away those secrets because they're talking. So we've got these different birds being suggested that they're going to give away his guilt. So I want you to pause here and think about what this reflects about his state of mind. Then he says, what is the night? Lady Macbeth says, almost at odds with morning, as if the night is fighting with the morning. Which is which? So it's late. Macbeth then says, how sayest thou that Macduff denies his person at our great bidding? Why do you think that Macduff refuses to come at such an important time? Lady Macbeth, did you send to him, sir? Or did you ask for him? And he says, I hear it by the way from others, but I will send, I will ask for him. There's not a one of them but in his house I keep a servant feed. And so he says, there's not a single noble in Scotland that doesn't have a spy. I keep a servant feed means I keep a servant bribed with food to stay in the house of nobles, so I'll find out from my spies. I will tomorrow, and betimes I will to the weird sisters. So he commits to going to see the witches early tomorrow, and early I will to the weird sisters. More shall they speak. They're going to tell me more about what's happening. For now I am bent to know by the worst means the worst. I'm determined to know by the most awful ways the most awful of fates. For mine own good, all causes shall give way. Everything else shall be forgotten. And this final image, he says, I am in blood, stepped in so far, that should I wade no more, should I go no further, returning were as tedious as go over, to cross to the other side. So he imagines here walking in a river of blood and being so far up to his shoulders almost in blood from the murders that he's committed, that actually, if he doesn't go any further, coming back and doing the right thing, coming back to the original side of the river, is just as difficult as to carry on and go over to the other. So this seems to be a strong commitment to commit further acts of violence. It's just as difficult for me to come back and do the right thing as it is to just carry on and to keep killing things and people. Strange things I have in head that will to hand. Strange things I have in my mind that need to be done, that will to hand, which must be acted ere they may be scanned, which must be acted out before people can be thought about. And he means both for himself here, for his own mind. I need to just get on with it before thinking about it. Lady Macbeth says, you lack the season of all natures, sleep. So again it comes up, the sleeplessness motif. You lack the thing that preserves all people and animals, sleep. And Macbeth says, come, Will, to sleep. Let's go to bed. My strange and self-abuse is the initiate fear. It's a beginner's state of fear that lacks experienced use, that wants hard use. We are but young indeed. We are inexperienced in this violence.